Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of the Academy. Today we're going to pick up where we left off before. We're working through Liddell Hart's 8 Maxims of Strategy, and today we're going to cover number 5. Okay, number 5 is relatively straightforward, has a much longer paragraph though to explain it in a little more detail. So let's go ahead and read. Take a line of operation which offers alternative objectives. That's the maxim. Now, for you will thus put your opponent on the horns of dilemma, which goes far to assure your chance of gaining at least one objective, whichever one he guards the least, and maybe enable you to gain one after the other. Now, alternative objectives allow you to keep the opportunity of gaining objective, whereas a single objective, unless the enemy doesn't know what your objective is, alternative objectives allow you to keep the opportunity of gaining an objective, whereas a single objective, unless the enemy is helplessly inferior, means the certainty that you will not gain it, once the enemy is no longer uncertain of what it is. There is no more common mistake than to confuse a single line of operation, which is a wise one, with a single objective, which is usually futile. If this maxim applies mainly to strategy, it should be applied where possible to tactics, and does, in effect, form the basis of infiltration tactics. Okay, so let's start with that last sentence real quick, because he states that this maxim applies more to strategy, but should be applied where applicable to tactics. Now remember, strategy is, we think of it in terms of the higher levels of, military organization. So you're looking brigade or probably higher, division and up, right? You're trying to set forth, move your divisions, your armies, along a line of operation, a direction, is really it is, a path where they can achieve more than just one objective. You want to give them multiple objectives. That way, if one's not possible, they've got the other one they can take. It's not always a choice. You want them to get all of the objectives, but at least they're not putting everything into one basket kind of thing. Okay, but you want to apply this also to tactics where possible. Now, because it's a smaller unit, it's not always applicable, but there are going to be places it can be. A couple examples where games or scenarios have primary and secondary objectives. Okay, entirely possible to, have multiple objectives now. In 40K, there is something called Maelstrom games and missions, where they have tactical objective cards, and you have multiple of those in your hand. So you have multiple objectives you can go for, right? So that's where you can actually apply it on a tactical level. So now, what he's looking for, we're kind of working our way backward through his explanation here, but he says, remember that there is no more common mistake than to confuse a single line of operation with a single objective. Okay, so what he's really trying to get at there, and I'm going to use this to kind of establish a baseline here, is moving your force, your army, in one direction is not the same as going after one objective. Okay, you don't have to split up your entire army to go after different things just because you have multiple objectives. You can take your entire army, move in one direction to accomplish all of the objectives, just one after the other, right? So oftentimes what we do is we decide, we need to get all three of these things, so I'll send a group here, and I'll send a group of my army here, I'll send another piece out here. And really what we do is we start dispersing our combat capability, and we're not as likely to secure the objectives. Your opponent actually would then be in a position to potentially consolidate their combat capability and prevent you from reaching each of those objectives, whether it's the destruction of something or the occupation of something, just one at a time. So don't confuse this idea of having multiple objectives and having a line of direction, single line of direction. Don't mix the two up, where single objective, single line of direction, or multiple objectives, multiple line of direction. Okay, so let's use that as a base. Now we'll move on to the next, or earlier the previous sentence. He's talking about, remember, the alternate objectives allow you to keep the opportunity of gaining an objective. Okay, whereas a single objective obviously is not as likely to be gained because your opponent knows what it is and will be able to put all of his effort, all of his combat capability into stopping you. Now, here's the crux of this maxim. for you will put your opponent on the horns of a dilemma. Now see, that's the whole point here. You want to make sure you have as many objectives as possible where you can score points, ways you can score points, if you will, so that if the opponent's keeping you from scoring it one way, you've got another way to score it. Okay. Now, let's use a couple examples of how this would look in a tactical level. Now, again, doesn't always work from the perspective of some games, but I think we can still apply the tactics. Let's break it down into two pieces. Let's first look at missions and scenarios where there are multiple objectives. For example, a Warhammer 40K game where they're using multiple tactical objective cards. So let's say you've got 3 objectives. Now the idea here is if I have 3 completely different objectives, for example, we have to maybe kill a certain model or unit. We have to seize a certain objective marker on the table, and we have to keep the opponent out of our deployment zone. Let's just say those are the 3 objectives. Now, our line of direction here can be simply moving our unit, our entire army, in such a way to reach and accomplish all 3 of these objectives. Now, our tendencies often is on the tabletop to attack each of these objectives with a part of our army. Have the units that are perfectly suited to taking out that unit, go after that unit. Take other units that are good at taking out, go and grab that objective to do that. And then others that are good at holding their position, hold them back. So you got 3 separate forces doing 3 separate things. And that's what he's trying to advise you against at a tactical level, if possible. The alternative would be to take your entire army and move in a direction through which you'll be able to achieve all 3 objectives. So here's how that might look. You still will keep a portion of your army, I'll call it back, but not necessarily leave it stationary in the back, but you will move it up forward enough to start pushing back on the opponent, keep them from getting into your lines, your defensive lines, into your deployment zone. The large portion of your force will make its way toward that place on the board you need to hold, but positioned in such a way where they can, as much of it as possible, can threaten that one unit you need to take out. So the entire army is trying to do all 3 things at once. I'm sorry, they're not trying to do all 3 things at once, but they're positioning themselves to accomplish any of the 3 objectives. So you've got a screen now. Your army's consolidated in a band, if you will, across the board to actually prevent a physical barrier to your opponent coming across. Yes, I know there's always ways around it, but still, that's what you can try to do. All those units can shoot at and hopefully destroy any of the units that your opponent could use to get behind your own line, okay? Which would allow you to take that one objective of holding your deployment zone free of enemy units. The next piece, the whole army could also, if there aren't that many threats to the back line, focus its firepower on that character that's been marked for death, the target, if you will. So they're able to send firepower down that way, threatening that unit, while the whole time getting closer to that position on the board they need to be in. If that unit somehow survives, your units are still in a position to hold that objective. If they do manage to destroy that one unit, and yes, they're pushed off that objective, you still accomplished one of your objectives. And even if enemy units got behind you somehow, you still were able to take out that one unit and take on that objective. You've done 2 of the 3. So by focusing your combat capability in a direction to get all 3, by mutually supporting each other, basically, you can find ways to do this concept, use this maxim in a tactical situation. Now, let's use chess as an example. And we'll actually use an example of both situations where it won't work and where it will work. Chess, by its very nature, has only one objective. And the opponent knows what this is and is trying to stop you. That's kill the king, or capture, or checkmate the king. You both know what it is. You both know how to try to stop that. That's what you're doing. So obviously you can't use this whole concept, this whole maxim in that perspective. However, remember, chess is a series of moves leading up to that endgame. So here's how you can still use this even in a tactical situation. So I'm using the chess as an example, and see if you can't figure out how to take this and apply it to these other games. Okay, so during the game while you're playing chess, you're moving your pieces, trying to get position. You're looking to achieve positional strength on the board by getting certain squares and angles on the opponent, and you're going to oftentimes try to put yourself in a position where your one piece can threaten two or more of your opponent's chess pieces. What you've done there is you've created a situation where you have two objectives. They're very tactical. They're not game-winning, but they're tactical objectives. One piece is powerful, and it'll be good to get rid of that. Another piece is effective, and it'll be good to get rid of that one. The opponent will be hamstrung with either, or not hamstrung, but impacted by the loss of either one. And you've put him on that horns of dilemma. Now he's got to choose which is he going to protect. Now, if you've done it right, he won't be able to just move one piece and block both. He'll move one piece, protect one of the two, and you'll take the other. So there's a situation where you took a game in which there was only one objective and created situations where there were multiple objectives and moved your piece along a line, a direction, where he could create and make or achieve those one or more objectives, right? So that's kind of what he's looking for here, or he's trying to get us across in this whole maxim. So it's not always easy to pull off at a tactical level, because oftentimes, we are so focused on just trying to accomplish the one thing or trying to race against time to get as much of it as possible, and that can be a little difficult. I've seen many times in my own personal gaming where my tendency to, I'll call it panic, because I feel overwhelmed by the shortness of time and the need to go get everything, that I will disperse my effort and try to go after it all, when if I could just coordinate everything, focus that combat capability, I could achieve each objective in sequence. Okay, kind of like if you think in terms of destroying an army in detail, you don't go after the whole army with your whole army. You go after small portions of the army with your whole army, destroying it in detail, one piece after the other, with overwhelming firepower, okay, overwhelming combat capability. Well, the same thing here with objectives. Find situations where you have multiple objectives and use your entire combat capability along that line to try to achieve all of them one at a time. So at least your opponent's going to have to choose, well, which is he going to really fight against? Because he can also decide to split up his entire force and try to stop you from getting all three. Or, which of course, the one he's least capable of stopping, you'll succeed with. Or he can consolidate his entire force and try to stop you on the one, which means you'll still get one or two of the others. So you win either way, as far as number of getting objectives. Now, whether you win the game or not, it's a whole other story. That depends on how the points play. But that's the concept with this fifth maxim. So I hope that made sense to you. If it does, please comment below, let me know. And yeah, I wish I had said this at the beginning, but I want to thank everybody for subscribing and sharing these videos. Please comment as often as you can. Not willy-nilly, but let me know what you're getting out of this, if you are getting anything, even alternative viewpoints, or whatever. Let me know, and click that notification button, and I will see you in the next edition of the Academy. Bye-bye.